We are honoring today, with our highest award, two exceptional people, both of whom have, by their work, changed how we as Americans view the world and the responsibility we have to be concerned for others. Behind me on the flag up by the castle fly the flags of their forefathers' countries, India and Latvia, next to Arcadia, Pennsylvania, and the USA. And that brings me to one of the most important parts of today's ceremony, the presentation of honorary degrees. Our university's mission is to produce very bright people to lead our society. That's you. An institution of higher learning, we are also given the right by our charter to be able to recognize the achievements of those who have provided exemplary service in their lives by awarding them honorary degrees. It's our privilege today to be able to publicly recognize and present to you, the class of 2012, two such people, graduating students. Each of the recipients is brought before you as an example of what you can achieve if you use your incredible assets, your brains, your skills, your passion, and your energies to the best of your abilities. They bring great honor to Arcadia by allowing us to honor them, but they're here with a greater purpose, to serve as an inspiration to you, because of the lives of excellence and commitment that they have led. Do not forget who they are. Remember why we are honoring them today, and do your best when you leave here to follow their examples. Will Dr. Jennifer Riggin, Assistant Professor of International Studies in the School of Arts and Sciences, please come forward and present the second candidate for an honorary doctorate, Fred de Sam Lazaro. Mr. Lazaro, please join me here.
Class of 2012. You are the first class to graduate from Arcadia University in which each of you has had a Global Connections experience, either abroad or in the United States. You have studied in many countries and learned in and with many communities. Fred de Sam Lazaro has also had a few Global Connections experiences. He's traveled to 51 countries in search of the undertold story. You will find his work on PBS NewsHour and on his Undertold Stories Project website. As director of the Undertold Stories Project at St. Mary's University in Minnesota, he combines teaching and journalism. He has also directed films and documentaries for the PBS documentary series Wide Angle, and he has received countless awards and fellowships for his work. In all of his work, from Haiti to sub-Saharan Africa to South Asia, he focuses on stories that are underreported in the mainstream US media. Mr. de Sam Lazaro, you have undertaken a journalistic mission of global proportion, yet you tell your stories at the individual level. You take topics such as global health, human rights, international justice, ethics, food security, science, healthcare, the environment, and social entrepreneurship, and show the impact in terms of real people living real lives in real places. You tell stories about solutions. You give people dignity as you educate the public. You challenge and motivate all of us to act. Your work exemplifies the purpose, power, and potential of journalism. As a journalist and filmmaker, you document what no one should ignore. You probe global issues in countries and communities clearly in crisis and in hidden corners where we think crisis cannot be. Your work reveals the complex relationships of global systems while showing that hope is always possible. For your many accomplishments and those yet to come, Arcadia University awards you the degree of Doctor of Humanities.
Upon recommendation of the faculty and by the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I now confer upon you, Fred de Sam Lazaro, the degree of Doctor of Humanities honoris causa, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Dr. Lazaro, we're honored to have you now give the commencement address to the class of 2012.
Thank you, President Oxholm, trustees, faculty. I'm humbled by your generosity and hospitality. Thanks also to my longtime colleague in work, Nikki C., and my lifelong partner, Kay, who could not be here today. I asked several people before coming here what they remembered about their commencement ceremony, and to a person, not one could remember who their commencement speaker was. Some of them had celebrities, and they probably remembered who that was, but not a thing that they actually said. So I took a moral out of that, and as Henry VIII would say to his wives, I won't keep you long. I needn't remind you that you're graduating at a time of great economic uncertainty. I just did, sorry. But I want to offer you some reassurance that you will thrive, you will invent yourself and reinvent yourself. Take it from one who has survived not one, but two very deep recessions, the first happening right after I graduated in the early 1980s. Little did I realize at the time that we were beginning the transition to the information age that continues to this day, exciting, terrifying, discomforting. There's no way to go on with business as usual. As I think of how it's affected journalists and journalism, I'm reminded of the parable of the magician who worked on a cruise ship. Now, his audience was different every week, so he just got slack and saw no reason to vary his repertoire. So week in and week out, he did the same tricks over and over again. But there was a problem. The captain's parrot happened to be in the room, and after a while started to understand how these tricks came about, and he started after a while to spill the beans on the magician. He would say things like, look, he's hiding the flowers under the table, or hey, why are all the cards the ace of spades? Well, look, it's not the same hat. The magician was furious, but there was nothing he could do because this was the captain's pet. Well, one day there was a massive storm and the ship sank and everybody pretty much drowned in this disaster with the exception of the magician, who found himself on a piece of wood drifting around in the ocean with the parrot, miraculously, next door to him. So these two stared and glared and glowered at each other for a whole day, and then another day, and a third. And finally, on the fourth day, the parrot could hold back no longer, and he said, okay, dude, I give up. Where's the frickin' ship? I relate to that bird. Our job as journalists is to uncover sometimes unpleasant truths. And we're unpleasant ourselves frequently, and we didn't really need to worry about it very much in the past because we were protected by the captains of our industry. But the industry of journalism, the advertiser-supported industry of news, is a shipwreck today. Tens of thousands of journalists have lost their jobs, and it's becoming incumbent upon all of us, no matter what our profession, to bring out our inner journalist, to find credible sources of unbiased information. I have a bias for PBS NewsHour, by the way, but there are many others. We're in an age when you're much more likely to watch something that I've produced because someone shared it with you than actually catching it yourself on a television broadcast. The internet has created a historic shift in the way we're informing ourselves, and the implications of all of this will not be clear for some time. But what it has opened up for us is an amazing, vivid window into distant places where the cruise ship of old media rarely visited. Foreign places. The undertold story is making these foreign places less foreign. That's our motto. It used to be expensive, distant, thought to be foreign to our audience and largely irrelevant to us culturally and economically. That's not true anymore, if it ever was. And you are told this repeatedly as Arcadia students. I'm just blown away by how many international experiences you guys have had. Today we have portable technology to bring stories back from the distant world. Anyone here remember the Joseph Kony 2012 video? The challenge is, how do we tell these stories sustainably, not fleetingly, to engage us, to address the litany of human suffering? How do we address the first question that comes up before any journalist goes out to cover a story, and that question is, so what? I'll give you a few examples. Every one of us flushed cleaner water down the toilet this morning than nearly 1 billion people consume today. Almost a third of humanity does not have the dignity of a clean toilet with walls around it. Perhaps 130 million women in the world are subjected to varying degrees of something called female circumcision. 80% of the world's hungry people are people whose profession it is to grow food. It's depressing stuff. There's no amount of guilt, though, or shame that's going to sustain interest, and certainly not attract eyeballs to the television. So what we've done at the Undertold Stories Project is report these issues with a solutions-oriented narrative, not sugarcoating the issues, just telling you about people who've designed models that appear to be working. I'd like to share some insights gained from being around these people, dozens of them over the years, outstanding people who've made the foreign less foreign and improved and actually saved the lives of millions of people. There's Molly Melching, an Illinois native who went to Senegal 30 years ago after graduating from college to brush up on her French, and she's still there, and she's singly more responsible than anyone else for that country abandoning female circumcision, something missionaries, governments, and the UN have tried to do for centuries. Molly worked not with shaming or blaming, but in partnership with community, with education. And when you talk to her, she'll say, it's no different than why we in America stopped smoking cigarettes. Everybody smoked. Your parents will fess up if you press them. A lot more of their generation smoked, and it was socially acceptable. And we quit not because someone shamed us, but we shamed ourselves. It has to come from within. David Kuria founded a chain of pay toilets that he planned to bring to the slums of Nairobi, where most of the city lives without indoor toilets. But to sell this concept, he opened his first eco-toilet in the ritziest part of downtown Nairobi, so people could see that it was good enough for the well-to-do people. It's the good old aspirational television advertising, basically, that we see in this country. We all want to be like the glamorous people we see. It's no different when you're selling toilets to poor people. And as David Kuria, who has a for-profit business and now 35 outlets in the city, said to me in a soundbite we could not put on television, the shit business is great. The third example and final example that I want to share with you today is a graduate, an MBA from Minnesota, a young man who 7 years ago decided to take a short vacation someplace different and found himself in rural Kenya. Andrew Yoon was astonished by the plight of small subsistence farmers, and even more astonished at how little it would take to bring their technology out of the Bronze Age, as he put it. He used $7,000 of his personal savings to help 40 families obtain credit, good seeds and fertilizer, and a little outreach training on simple things, how far apart to space your maize plants, stuff that farmers in Iowa learned a century ago. In one season, these farmers were able to triple their yields. And today, Andrew's group is called 1 Acre Fund, and it serves 130,000 families. And there are bountiful surpluses of grain in this region. And by the way, I must say more than parenthetically, 1 Acre Fund, like all successful social entrepreneurs, places special emphasis on women. Women bear the heaviest burden of work and disease amid childbearing, child rearing, fetching water, washing, you name it. So it makes sense when you work to improve people's lives that you'll get a better yield if you work with women who will spend money on new income, on priorities that feed and educate children first. Men have other priorities, as you've probably realized on this campus since about the mid-'70s when you started to admit them. But social entrepreneurs, who are the people whose example I want to bring to your attention today as new graduates, these are people for whom no problem is too large to be tackled at some level. They've demonstrated solutions that in some cases have scaled up to be massive enterprises, and in other cases they're waiting for you to pick up the baton and help scale up these ideas. I heard yesterday that 80% of Arcadia students have used their passports. Wow. There are many places where 80% of the students do not have passports. This is an astounding leg up that you have. And it's a great preparation for a career wherever you'll settle, because you will work in a global economy. Africa, for example, can never be irrelevant. Well, so much of the world's natural resources, minerals, energy, and yes, outsourced food production will come from Africa. Can we ignore places and people in poverty, even in a moral vacuum? Thousands of young people like you are discovering that addressing these issues is a fulfilling livelihood, that you can be a health scientist, a business major, a for-profit toilet magnate, even a journalist. This is not Mother Teresa's domain exclusively anymore. Successful social entrepreneurs are what you might call 4-H people. These are people of hope, as in being what Archbishop Desmond Tutu said to me, being a prisoner of hope, of help, as in passion for service to others, and humility mixed with a bit of humor. These will serve you well whether your customer is a peasant in Kenya or a well-heeled investor with Goldman Sachs. You need to pay attention to the needs of your customers first. Each year, Andrew Yoon says he has about 20 openings for expat staff at One Acre Fund. And he said last year he received 10,000 resumes, most from young American graduates. That, he proudly told me, makes it 8 times harder to get a job at One Acre Fund than Goldman Sachs. That says a lot about what people like you are aspiring to these days. And I realize it might sound daunting to some of you, especially if your name was among the 9,980 in the reject pile. If it was among the 20, please see me after this, by the way. But there are millions of opportunities in a world that's been opened up and made smaller for you, and for you to use your skills, knowledge, and values that you take from here to make it better. So many social entrepreneurs are proving it, many of them by trial, error, and course correction. It's not easy, but they'll tell you it's been a blast. And that leads me finally to making sure to tune in to your humor. I was on assignment in Indonesia about 4 years ago, and when we go to these countries, we usually hire a local person, it's a journalist typically, to do some of our arrangements. It's called a fixer, and they make your interview appointments, give you background information, translate for you, basically your handler once you arrive. And we had this fellow in Jakarta who kept introducing us to people as a crew from CBS News. And by about the third time that he'd said that we were from CBS, I pulled him aside and I said, "Look here, it's not CBS, it's PBS." "Ah," he said, "I knew it was something BS." Thank you so much. Good luck to you.